Good morning, my fellow leaders. My name is Ryan Durden, and this is Momentum Media, where success is the goal. Today's show is about adversity and some of the things that we can do to overcome it and become the best people that we can be. My guest today has overcome so many challenges in her life, and she's continuing on her journey to success, powering through any obstacle that gets in her way. She's a TED Talk speaker and author of 2 books, Beyond Bound and Broken, and From Ashes to Beauty. Her name is Ria Story. Ria, thank you for joining us today.
Absolutely, Ryan. It's my pleasure.
So first, I want to go into your backstory. Why did you become a motivational speaker and author, and what makes you a survivor?
Sure. In 2013, I was sitting in a conference room, and there were probably 200 people in the room, but I heard motivational speaker Les Brown speak. And he's speaking to the whole room, but he said, "You have a story to tell, and someone needs to hear your story, and only you can help that person." And I thought, wow, I have a story to tell, but I don't want to tell it. And I had spent 13 years of my life refusing to talk about my story, refusing to even look back at my story. I left home at 19. I was the victim of sexual abuse by my father from age 12 to 19. And, it had progressed as I'd gotten older to the point where by the time I was 17, he was regularly having sex with me and would bargain with me in exchange for sexual favors for something like an outing with my friends. And he was always saying he wanted to give me the ultimate experience in life. And that looked like a lot of different things. Sometimes it meant taking nude pictures of me. Sometimes it meant beating me black and blue with a riding crop. And sometimes it meant sharing me with others. And there were times when life was almost not worth living. And I thought about ending it. And, I think that I'm not alone in that. Every single one of us goes through adversity, but it's learning to overcome that. And so, today I tell people I'm not just a survivor, but I've learned to thrive. Because after I left home, I met a knight in a shiny Camaro. And today we've been married 17 years. But after meeting him, I found the courage and the strength to lead. And I didn't have anything when I left home. I didn't have a job. I didn't have a car. I didn't have a high school diploma. I'd never been to school. And really just stepping out into the unknown was a huge step for me. And after I left, I locked my past up tight. I didn't even talk about it. I didn't share it with many people. I locked it up behind a closed door and I threw away the key. And I spent the next 13 years trying to forget it. And when I heard Les Brown speak, I thought, wow, I've got a story to tell, all right, but I'm not sure that I want to tell it. And it took me 6 months to find the courage to overcome just the bounds of shame and guilt that I'd carried for more than 20 years by that point. So when I decided to become a motivational speaker, I heard Les Brown speak, and then 6 months later, we went back for a speaker training, and I decided to share my story. And Mark Twain says the 2 greatest days in our life are the day we're born and the day we discover why. And August 14th, 2013 was the day that I found my why, and I shared my story.
That's a very powerful, moving, and inspiring story. No matter what your life throws at you, you always get through it. A wise man once told me that God doesn't put anything in your path that he doesn't think you can handle, and you've proven that to be true. You talk about nature versus nurture and what determines the outcome of our lives. Can you shed a little light or share your thoughts on what you meant by that?
So I believe that we're not determined by nature or nurture, because every one of us, when it comes down to it at the end of the day, we have freedom of choice. We don't get to decide what happens to us in life, but we decide, do we become bitter about it or better because of it? And it's not an easy choice, but it is a choice.
You found the courage to tell your story from an event that you attended where Les Brown spoke. What made you go to that event?
It was a leadership conference, and my husband was He was already working as a consultant, but he was transitioning to more into leadership development. And I was working in a very successful career in hospital administration, loved my job, loved the organization. And Mac was really, transitioning into leadership development, and he just asked me to go to the conference with him. And at first I was resistant. I was like, man, I don't have time for that. I'm away from work, another trip. But I realized that, being intentional about leadership is critical to success in life, because we define leadership as influence. So we don't often think about ourselves as being leaders, but every single one of us wants influence. We want to influence people at work and at home, our parents, our kids, our boss. And if leadership is influence, we should all be studying how to do it and how to do it better. So it was a life-changing experience for me for many reasons.
That's awesome. What is your definition of success?
I think that each one of us defines success differently based on our values. And I think first we must, be intentional about choosing those values. Stephen Covey talks about an exercise in his book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And he asks the reader to close their eyes and imagine it's their 75th birthday party. And, family and friends are toasting to you, and you really just imagine what they would be saying. Would they say, this person always had time for me? Or would they say this was a great family person? Or would they say this person loved to travel, or that he was wealthy? Right. So I think if each of us are intentional about choosing our values and what's important to us, that gives us a very clear set of guidance on how to reach success. We first must know what it looks like. We've got to know where we're going in order to get there.
Definitely, yeah. So it's how you want to be remembered. That's definitely. And what do you think? What do you think your biggest success is so far?
My biggest success is probably learning to overcome myself. I'm not a natural communicator or connector with people, and that really held me back for many years after leaving home. I'd grown up very isolated. I didn't go to school. We didn't go to church. And as a victim of abuse, I'd naturally tended to be very non-communicative with people. I was very quiet, not introverted, but just I didn't know how to connect with people. I didn't know how to have a conversation with people. And that held me back a little bit professionally for the first few years of my career, until I learned that I could intentionally develop those skills. And the more intentionally I became about applying those principles and getting better at that, the more successful I became, both as a leader and just in my personal life.
Yeah, and as a leader, what do you think your biggest challenge is? Besides communicating. The biggest challenge for any leader, I think it's universal. Our biggest challenge is leading ourselves. Because until we are able to lead ourselves well and influence ourselves well by making those right choices for us personally, it's difficult to have influence with anyone else. And I think that's something every leader faces. It's making the tough choices. The hardest person to lead and influence is the one sitting in our chair, because we tend to look at others and judge them by their actions, but we judge ourselves by our intentions. So I think that's always our biggest challenge, is growing and developing ourselves so that we can become better and more effective at everything else we do. Ria, you have a system called the RICE system. Can you kind of go into detail on what the actual system means and how we can actually implement it into our lives?
Sure. It's actually RISE, R-I-S. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So it stands for, the first step is R, stands for respond proactively. And that again comes down to choosing our response to any given situation in life, choosing a response based on our values. It's not just looking outside and seeing that it's raining, but learning to dance in the rain, taking what life hands us and learning to be grateful for what we can. So responding proactively based on our values. The I stands for identify accurately. So identify what's holding us back, identify where we are, and identify where we are going. And that really comes down to being intentional through our day-to-day agenda. And the S is step forward consistently. You know, you've heard the famous quote about a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. We can't just take the first step. We've got to take the second step and the third step. And we have to just move forward one step at a time every single day. And that will take us there. And then the E stands for experience joy, because joy is not a product of our circumstances. It's a choice that we make. Every single one of us have the ability to have joy in life. And I think that's critical, because it's not just having life, but having abundant life.
Ria, you have been such an amazing guest. Thank you so much for sharing your story with all of us. Is there anything else that you want to leave with everyone?
I think that what I love to leave people with is, and I mentioned it a little bit earlier, but, it doesn't matter what happens to us in life. What's important is who we become from this moment on. What happens to us in life is not as important as the rest of our story. And I like to share that. That's really my message.
That's awesome. And Ria, where can everyone find you?
You can find me on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram. I'm on there, Ria Story, just any of those platforms, or of course my website, riastory.com.
Awesome. Again, thank you so much. It's been an honor and a pleasure. And I know that you're going to inspire a lot of people that are listening. You've inspired me. Thank you, Ria, for sharing your story. And we look forward to seeing what you have for us next time.
Absolutely, Ryan. Thank you. Take care.
All right, you too.